On the very day I married into the general's household, Sun Yang from the tofu shop volunteered to surrender herself to the enemy forces. Upon hearing this, my husband fled the wedding immediately. I waited in agony for 3 months, only for him to return with Su Wan, who was pregnant. Sun Yang carried my flesh and blood. I must take her as my concubine. Our wedding will be held together with yours. I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. Until a month later, when Su Wan miscarried, Gu Han began showering me with mad devotion. I thought he'd changed his heart, but he pushed me from the capital's tallest tower, shattering me to pieces. As I died, I saw only his cold gaze upon me. You killed Wan's child. You must pay with your life. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the wedding ceremony. On the day Gu Han and I were to wed, enemy forces launched a night raid on our vital supply depot. Just as we were about to exchange vows, his men rushed in with urgent news. General Su, the tofu shop's mistress, offers herself to the enemy commander in exchange for the supplies. She says she'll do anything to save our soldiers. Through my sheer veil, I saw Gu Han's body jerk violently. Nonsense. How could we let a woman do such a thing? Tell Sun Yangzi. This general is coming to rescue her at once. He turned to leave. I cried out urgently. Husband, today is our joyous wedding day. The emperor had already intended to take me into the palace. I staked the lives of my entire Jiang family, claiming I had long harbored feelings for you, just to barely preserve my virtue. He glanced back at me. I said I'd marry you. And I will. Can't you wait a few days? With that, he strode away without looking back. I was left standing alone in the hall, exposed to the whispers and pointed fingers of the guests. Gu Han was gone for 3 months. During that time, reports kept reaching the capital. The general and Lady Su were inseparable. Inseparable as glue and lacquer. They said she was tender and considerate, personally cooking for the general. They said she disregarded her status, tending to wounded soldiers in the camp. The noble women of the capital looked at me with increasing pity, whispering behind my back. Poor thing. Abandoned on her wedding night. What a terrible disgrace. I hear that Beauty Su is even carrying the general's child. Mother fell ill over it. Father wore a perpetual frown. Yet all I could do was wait. Wait for his return. Wait for an explanation. 3 months later, Gu Han finally came back to the capital. But he didn't return alone. Madame Su, her belly showing 3 months' pregnancy, stepped down from the carriage, carefully supported by him. I stood at the mansion gate to greet them. When he saw me, his expression shifted uncomfortably. Aining, I'm sorry you've waited so long. I nodded. General, you've endured much hardship. After a moment's silence, he finally spoke. Lady Su bears my child. I intend to take her as my concubine. Her wedding will be held alongside yours. I ask for your understanding. I stared at him blankly, finding my voice only after a long moment. Very well. He seemed slightly taken aback, perhaps not expecting such an immediate consent. Su Wan also appeared surprised, then spoke softly. Thank you for your kindness. Sister, I know you are generous-hearted. I will serve you well from now on. Holding 2 weddings simultaneously became a laughingstock throughout the capital. I wore my imperial wedding attire, while she was dressed in simple cloth garments. Yet Gu Han's eyes were fixed only on her. At the banquet, he repeatedly served her food, his gaze so tender it seemed to drip with affection. Guests whispered among themselves, and I sat at the head table feeling like I was sitting on pins and needles. After the wedding, Gu Han moved into Su Lady's courtyard. In my bridal chamber, I was alone. On a moonlit night, I sat alone by the window. Through the wall, I could hear the laughter and merriment from the neighboring courtyard. A month later, Madame Sue suffered a miscarriage. It began when she stumbled in the garden, disturbing the fetus. When I went to visit her, Gu Han was keeping vigil by her bedside. He held her hand tightly, his eyes red-rimmed and face ashen, as if struggling to hold back something. I had never seen such an expression on his face before. Seeing me enter, Madame Sue weakly struggled to sit up. The general's wife has come. Her voice was choked with tears. I approached the bed. Madame Sue, your health comes first. No need for formalities. Yet she suddenly burst into tears, clutching Gu Han's hand. General, I know the lady dislikes me, but I truly didn't mean to take your. I just wanted to give the child a proper status. Gu Han squeezed her hand tenderly. Don't overthink it. Focus on getting well. But the child is gone. She choked out, glancing at me hesitantly before lowering her head again. Gu Han noticed her gaze and frowned, asking, what is it? Speak freely. Sun Yang bit her lip, looking reluctant to complain yet utterly aggrieved. Yesterday while walking in the garden, I met the lady. She warned me to watch the moss underfoot. I thanked her then, but later I took another path where the moss was thicker. I stepped on it and slipped. She lifted tear-filled eyes to Gu Han. It was all Wanwan's carelessness. That path is usually well maintained, but yesterday the moss was unusually thick. As she spoke, she seemed to suddenly realize something and quickly covered her mouth. General, I haven't said anything. Please don't blame the lady. It's all my own fault for not watching where I was going. This attempt to cover up only served to confirm my guilt. Gu Han slowly turned his head to face me. His eyes blazed with searing hatred. Jiang Ning. He uttered my name deliberately, each syllable stabbing into my heart like a blade. I see you now. He said nothing more, merely standing in the doorway, fixing me with a gaze I couldn't fathom. That gaze was bottomless, as if trying to see right through me. My heart raced, and I opened my mouth to explain. But he suddenly grabbed me and dragged me toward the side hall. His grip was strong, almost brutal. Gu Han, what are you doing? Before I could finish, he began tearing at my clothes. Gu Han, have you lost your mind? I struggled in terror, trying to push him away. But his grip was too strong, I couldn't break free. He ignored my cries, pinning me down on the bed with a desperation bordering on madness. I'd never seen him like this before. That night, I cried until my voice gave out. From that night onward, for a full month, Gu Han seemed like a different person. He stopped going to the barracks and neglected his duties with Sue's wife. Instead, he clung to me day and night. Each time carried a hint of self-torture, as if he were punishing something. I didn't know who he was punishing. Was it me? Or himself? My body couldn't endure it. Every morning I woke up aching all over. The humiliation in my heart was even worse. He never spoke a single tender word. Never once looked at me. He only demanded mechanically. Over and over. I thought of resisting, of running away. Yet a lowly hope took root in my heart. Perhaps he was just too tormented? Perhaps he had come to his senses and sought to forget Sun Yang this way? Perhaps he wanted to start anew with me? Holding on to these thoughts, I endured silently. I told myself that if he could change his mind, it would all be worth it. But in his eyes, I never existed. Even in the most intimate moments, he never looked at me. I thought if I endured it, it would pass. Until I became pregnant. General, the lady is with child. The doctor's words turned Gu Han's face ashen. He looked at me, hatred nearly spilling from his eyes. That night, he came to my room. I thought he had finally come to his senses, and a flicker of hope stirred within me. but he had come to take my life. Jiang Ning, you killed my child. Don't delude yourself into thinking another child can bind me to you. This bastard child has no right to live. He seized my wrist and dragged me out. What are you doing? He didn't answer. Simply hauling me up to the highest stargazing tower in the capital. Standing atop the tower, he stared at me, his eyes devoid of any warmth. I demand you pay with your life for my lost child. I stared at him in disbelief. Gu Han, you really intend to? Before I could finish, his palm slammed into my chest. Before I could react, my body lost its footing and plummeted. The howling wind roared in my ears, his cold face looming before my eyes. In that moment, I thought, if there is a next life, I will never love this man again. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of our wedding. It was still that moment at the altar. Still that scene of the military report being delivered. Gu Han was about to rise and leave, but this time I did not stop him. Instead, I spoke first. Military affairs come first. General, the wedding can be held another day. He paused, seemingly taken aback by my words. Aining, I offered a faint smile. Lady Su still awaits your rescue. You must go now. He fixed me with a long, lingering look before striding away. Once his figure vanished beyond the door, I instructed the maid beside me. Go. Pack all my dowry and return it to my family home. Also, have father prepare the divorce papers. The maid stared at me in shock. Miss, what are you? I smoothed my robes and replied calmly. Since he doesn't wish to marry me, I won't marry him. After all, he's not someone worth lingering over. Gu Han, go live with your Su lady. Upon returning to my parental home, my parents were having supper. Seeing me suddenly appear, Mother's spoon dropped straight into her bowl. Aining, why have you come back? Father also set down his chopsticks. His expression grave. What happened? I briefly recounted the events of the day. After hearing it, Mother's face turned pale with anger. That Gu Han, he's gone too far. Father remained silent for a long while before sighing heavily. Very well. It was bound to happen sooner or later. I looked at Father, puzzled. He gave a bitter smile. Aining, do you know what Gu Han relied on to achieve his position these years? He relied on the Jiang family's connections. He relied on me smoothing his path in the court. He relied on the military treatises I secretly provided him. A mediocre man like him, how could he have held on to the position of Grand General without my constant support behind the scenes? Mother chimed in, during that last battle in the northern frontier. If your father hadn't given him the enemy's deployment maps beforehand, he would have been utterly crushed. And last year's military pay scandal, if not for your father's connections in the Ministry of Revenue, he would have been impeached long ago. I listened in stunned silence, never having considered these truths. Father gazed at me, his eyes brimming with remorse. I have failed you, my child. To secure this marriage, to make him worthy of our Jiang daughter, I committed so many foolish acts. Now he dares to humiliate my daughter thus, shaming the entire Jiang family. Father slammed his fist on the table. From this day forward, I won't lend him a single penny. Without the Jiang family's backing, let's see how long he lasts. Mother looked at me with deep concern. But Ninger, if you break off the engagement so abruptly, what about your future marriage prospects? Which young master from the capital's noble families would dare marry you now? I offered a faint smile. Mother, rest assured, your daughter has her own plans. Before Mother could ask more, I rose to take my leave. I'm tired today. I'll retire to my chambers. Several days later, Gu Han returned to the capital as expected. This time, however, I made no attempt to delay him, and he arrived unusually early. Madame Su still showed no signs of pregnancy. He sought me out the moment he entered the manor. "Aining, you've endured much these past days." His expression held a hint of regret, yet not a trace of remorse. I regarded him calmly. What does the general mean by this? He paused. "Military affairs were urgent. I had no choice but to leave you behind. Now, at last, we can hold the wedding ceremony. I suppose holding your wedding alongside Madame Sue's would at least give her a proper status." A cold laugh rose in my heart. Yet I nodded gently. "Whatever you decide, General." He seemed relieved. "I'm glad you see it that way. Sue comes from humble origins. Please look after her." From that day, preparations for the double celebration began. Sue visited me daily to discuss wedding arrangements. Her demeanor was outwardly respectful, yet every word was a test, a provocation. "Sister, you are truly magnanimous. If it were me, I could never bear to share my husband. But then again, with your noble birth, you wouldn't stoop to quarreling with someone from a humble family like me. I hear your dowry is exceedingly generous." The general must be overjoyed. Mine, however, is utterly meager. How shameful. Every word seemed like praise, yet each was laced with barbs. I merely smiled faintly, maintaining the appearance of a virtuous and gracious woman. "Sister Sue, you flatter me. Your ability to bring joy to the general is more precious than anything." A flicker of smug satisfaction passed through her eyes. I sneered inwardly. Foolish girl, truly believing herself to be some kind of treasure. Days passed, and the wedding drew nearer. Outwardly, I bustled about preparing, but secretly, I arranged everything for my escape. Finally, the wedding day arrived. Before dawn, I rose to wash and dress. Chun Tao helped me into my bridal gown. Hesitation in her eyes. "Miss, are you truly going through with this?" I adjusted the jewels on my headpiece. My voice calm. "We've come this far. There's no turning back. Remember my instructions. Place a straw effigy in the palanquin, dress it in my old clothes, and cover it with my veil. When the general arrives to greet the bride and lifts the curtain, you simply watch from the side." Chun Tao bit her lip. "But miss, humiliating the general like this, might it not?" I turned to look at her, my eyes devoid of warmth. "He humiliated me first. This is merely returning the favor. I will make him understand that the daughters of the Jiang family are not to be trampled upon." With that, I removed the wedding gown and slipped into the plain clothes I had prepared long ago. Chun Tao followed my instructions, dressing the scarecrow and placing it inside the bridal sedan chair. I slipped out quietly through the back door. Later, Chun Tao told me the scene that day remains vivid in her memory. Gu Han arrived triumphantly on a tall horse to claim his bride, his face beaming with smug satisfaction. Madame Su had risen early to adorn herself, trailing behind the procession in the guise of a new bride. Gongs and drums blared, colorful ribbons fluttered, the scene was utterly festive. But the moment Gu Han lifted the bridal curtain at the mansion gates, all the clamor abruptly ceased. Seated inside the palanquin was none other than a scarecrow clad in tattered wedding robes. Gu Han's face instantly drained of color. The gathered guests and onlookers froze in shock before erupting into murmurs. What on earth was happening? Where was the bride? Could it be that the Jiang family's daughter refused the marriage? Ha ha ha! The general has gone and married a scarecrow. Sun Yang's expression also turned grim. She rushed forward. "General! What? What is this? Where is Sister Jiang?" Gu Han, his face dark as iron, turned without a word and entered the mansion. He left the courtyard full of guests staring at each other, whispering among themselves. That day, the capital was filled with the joke of General Gu marrying a scarecrow. Meanwhile, I had long been waiting quietly at the post station outside the city, biding my time to enter the palace. On the day I entered the palace, I wore a simple, plain blue robe. No phoenix crown or brocade robes. No jewels adorning my hair, only a white jade hairpin holding back my dark tresses. When the eunuch led me into the hall, the vast imperial study contained only the emperor. He stood with his back to me, hands clasped behind his back. "I greet your majesty." After a long moment, he turned around. His face held more authority than I remembered, yet his eyes concealed suppressed fury. "Raise your head." I obeyed, meeting his gaze. He paced with hands clasped behind his back, his voice devoid of emotion. "The capital was in an uproar yesterday. That scarecrow wedding procession, was that your doing?" "Yes." "How dare you?" He sneered coldly. "Publicly humiliating an imperial official, do you know the gravity of this crime?" I lowered my gaze. This humble subject acknowledges her guilt. Acknowledges guilt? He spun around abruptly, fury blazing in his eyes. "Then how dare you enter the palace to see me?" I lifted my head, meeting his eyes directly. "Because this humble subject has done nothing wrong." "Oh." His gaze held a hint of amusement. I did not kneel. Instead, I stepped forward. "When your majesty first sought to take this humble maiden into the palace, I staked the lives of the entire Jiang family, declaring my long-standing affection for Gu Han. Your majesty, moved by my chastity and loyalty, relented. But what of Gu Han? On our wedding day, he abandoned me to save his beloved confidant. Since he would not have me, I would not marry him. How could an unwed woman be disgraced?" A deathly silence hung in the imperial study. He stared at me intently, his chest heaving violently. After a long pause, he coldly demanded, "So, have you come to beg forgiveness? Or to claim credit?" I drew a deep breath, speaking each word deliberately. "I have come to fulfill my earlier promise." A flicker of emotion passed through his eyes. He stepped before me, towering over me. "Jiang Ning, why would you think I would want a woman rejected by others?" His words carried immense weight, bordering on accusation. My heart tightened, yet I forced a smile. "Your Majesty, you are mistaken. This humble servant has never been married. How could there be talk of being unwanted?" I drew the marriage contract from my sleeve and presented it with both hands. When a woman marries, the contract is burned to signify her devotion to her husband. This humble servant's contract remains intact, proving she has never truly wed. He took the contract and examined it closely for a moment. Taking a deep breath, I continued, "Should your majesty still harbor doubts, this humble maiden is willing to prove her chastity in person." The words hung in the air, filling the imperial study with deathly silence. He snapped his head up to look at me, shock flashing in his eyes. Meeting his gaze, I spoke each word deliberately. "This humble maiden has never shared physical intimacy with any man. If your majesty does not believe me, summon a female physician to verify it before you. This humble servant dares to pledge her life as collateral. Should there be even a shred of falsehood, she willingly accepts death." The air seemed to freeze. After a long moment, he suddenly laughed. The laughter began low and restrained, then grew unrestrained, until finally, tears streamed from his eyes. "Good. Very good." He stepped before me, reaching out to lift my chin. "Jiang Ning, you still possess such audacity. Truly worthy of you." Those 4 words carried an endless complexity of emotion. He released his grip, turned, and commanded, "Attendants, arrange for Lady Jiang to reside in Fengming Palace. Furthermore, convey this imperial decree, her personal maid, Chun Tao, is to be summoned to the palace immediately." I curtsied in gratitude and turned to leave. "Jiang Ning," he suddenly called out to me. I turned back. He gazed out the window, his voice deep and low. I have waited for you a long time. Fengming Palace was even more opulent than I had imagined. Pearl curtains hung to the floor within the hall. Incense burners wafted fragrant smoke. And every corner exuded imperial grandeur. The palace maids and eunuchs assigned to attend me were all seasoned veterans, each possessing keen intuition. Young lady, do these furnishings meet your satisfaction? The steward eunuch inquired with a flattering smile, his eyes brimming with reverence. It seemed the emperor's esteem for me had already spread throughout the entire harem. By evening, Chun Tao finally arrived. The moment she entered the hall, she rushed to my side, her face aglow with excitement. Miss, you should have seen the scene outside, it was so satisfying. She pulled me down to sit. Slow down. What has you so thrilled? Chun Tao beamed with excitement. It's that Gu Han and Su lady. The whole capital is laughing at them now. Yesterday, Gu Han went to marry a scarecrow. People turned it into a storybook and it's being sung everywhere. On my way here today, I even heard a storyteller performing it at the tea house. The audience was doubled over with laughter. She mimicked the storyteller's tone. So there goes the mighty general, full of pride, arriving for the wedding. He lifts the sedan curtain, and what do you know? A rickety straw dummy sitting inside. His face turned green. The tea house crowd laughed so hard they spit out their tea. I couldn't help but laugh too. Chun Tao grew even more animated. And there's more. Lady Su now dares not even step outside. Yesterday, someone splashed dung at the Gu Mansion's gate and scrawled 4 characters on the wall, faithless and ungrateful. Today, someone threw rotten cabbage leaves, cursing Lady Su as a shameless fox spirit. I heard the servants at the Gu residence are fleeing in droves, ashamed to be associated with such disgrace. I lifted my teacup, feeling considerably lighter. Chun Tao continued. Oh, and miss, the ministers in court have all submitted petitions declaring General Gu Han unfit for his rank due to moral failings. Even the Grand Tutor declared, how can a general lead troops into battle when he can't even manage his own marriage properly? Now the Gu residence is deserted. Those who once fawned over him keep their distance, afraid of catching his bad luck. I listened, my heart unmoved. This is merely the beginning. Several days after entering the palace, the emperor frequently visited Fengming Palace. He came again that day, playing chess with me in the hall. Chancellor Jiang had submitted a confidential report today. He placed a piece on the board. It detailed all of Gu Han's achievements over the years. I lifted my gaze to look at him. He smiled. Your father is quite meticulous. He even remembers exactly which battles Gu Han won using your Jiang family's defensive maps. Then there was the military pay scandal. The false claims of military merit in the northern frontier. The embezzlement of reward silver. Every single case, with irrefutable evidence. I placed my piece calmly. Father has always been cautious. More than cautious. The emperor murmured, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. He's been laying the groundwork step by step. He rose and walked to the window, turning his back to me. After a long silence, he spoke slowly. I promised you I would give you what you desire. He turned to look at me, his eyes concealing unfathomable emotions. At tomorrow's morning court session, someone will impeach Gu Han. This evidence is sufficient to condemn him to eternal ruin. The next day, the court chamber fell deathly silent. Gu Han knelt at the center of the golden hall, cold sweat trickling down his spine. The grand censor held the memorial, his voice resonant as a bell. Your Majesty, this servant impeaches General Gu Han, due to his intelligence failures in the Northern Frontier Campaign. Our forces suffered a crushing defeat, losing over 30,000 soldiers. Gu Han snapped his head up, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. Your Majesty, judge fairly. Though I may have been negligent, the ebb and flow of battle is the nature of warfare. How can all blame be placed upon me alone? In the Northern Frontier Campaign, I led from the front, fighting fiercely amidst the bloodshed. Is there anyone in this court who does not know this? His gaze swept the chamber as his voice grew more impassioned. Moreover, our forces ultimately achieved victory. Those soldiers who fell in battle sacrificed their lives for the nation, their deaths were not in vain. The Minister of Revenue sneered and stepped forward. Gu Han, you dare to argue? He drew a document from his sleeve. This is the battle report you personally submitted to the Ministry of Revenue, claiming the Northern Frontier defenses were based on your own reconnaissance. But in truth, this defense map was hastily drawn up overnight by Chancellor Jiang. You merely copied it verbatim. Gu Han's face paled. This is merely what? The Minister of War also stepped forward, holding a memorial. And last autumn's military pay scandal, you claimed it was caused by enemy raids. But in reality, you embezzled the funds to curry favor with that Sioux woman. Nonsense! Gu Han retorted fiercely, veins bulging on his temples. The military funds were indeed plundered. What personal gain could I possibly have? Lady Sioux comes from humble origins. How much silver could she possibly spend? The Minister of War remained unruffled, producing another ledger. Then how do you explain this ledger from the jewelers? A single string of Eastern pearls alone is worth 1,000 taels of silver. And these receipts from the silk shop, clothes purchased for the Sioux woman, cost no less than 3,000 taels. Where did this silver come from? Did the general's household suddenly strike gold? Gu Han's face drained of color, his words stumbling. He hadn't expected even these private matters to be uncovered so thoroughly. These were all from my official salary. His voice trailed off, growing fainter and fainter. Even he knew it was an untenable excuse. A general's salary, while not meager, was certainly insufficient for such extravagance. At that moment, the Minister of Rights stepped forward. And then there's the disaster relief silver from last winter. You reported it was distributed entirely to the victims. Yet my investigation reveals at least 30% remains unaccounted for. Those victims still suffer hunger and cold, while certain individuals revel in feasting and revelry within their mansions. Gu Han was utterly thrown. Your Majesty, I am innocent. This is all a frame. I have served your Majesty with unwavering loyalty, never harboring a single thought of disloyalty. He banged his forehead on the ground like a pestle pounding garlic, the sound echoing with each strike. Your Majesty, please see clearly. I have fought for the court for years, my body covered in scars. How could I commit such a foolish act? The Emperor looked down at him coldly, his eyes devoid of warmth. Loyalty? He sneered. If you were truly loyal, why conceal Chancellor Zhang's merits in your memorials? If you were truly loyal, why falsify battle reports to deceive my eyes? The ministers in the court chamber all turned their eyes toward him, their gazes filled with contempt. The general, usually so haughty and arrogant, now looked as wretched as a stray dog. Whispers spread among the crowd. So he's just a useless fool after all. No wonder he's been played like a puppet by a woman. Miss Jiang truly has eyes like a torch. She saw through his true nature long ago. Does such a man deserve the title of general? He is nothing but a disgrace to the court. Gu Han heard these whispers, his face burning with shame. He wanted to protest, yet found himself utterly speechless. All the evidence lay before him, irrefutable proof. He could only shake his head helplessly. It's not like that. It's not like that. The Emperor looked down at him, disappointment etched clearly in his eyes. Gu Han, I have treated you well. How dare you deceive the throne? Were it not for your past battlefield valor, stripping you of your rank and investigating you would be the least of your punishments. Effective immediately, your general's seal and insignia are revoked. You are demoted to commoner status, never to hold office again. Furthermore, All ill-gotten gains from your estate shall be confiscated and returned to the imperial treasury. Gu Han reeled as if struck by lightning, his body swaying precariously. His lips trembled for a long moment before he finally closed his eyes in utter despair. The bell signaling the end of court rang out, and the entire assembly of ministers filed out in single file. Former supporters passed by him without so much as a glance. Whispers spread through the crowd. Just a pretty face with no substance, no wonder he married a scarecrow. The Jiang family daughter had sharp eyes, seeing through him long ago. This is great. We'll be blamed for speaking up for him before. We'll avoid him from now on, lest we catch his bad luck. Gu Han knelt in the empty hall, listening to the mocking voices fade into the distance. After a long while, he remained alone in the chamber. A guard coldly urged, "Gu Han, withdraw at once." He struggled to his feet, his legs trembling so violently he could barely stand. Stepping out of the golden hall, the autumn sun stung his eyes shut. On the way back to the mansion, the pointing and whispering of passers-by along the street made him want to sink into the ground. "Look! That's the general who married a scarecrow. Now look at him, he can't even hold his position anymore." Head bowed, Gu Han hurried through the crowd, wishing he could vanish into a crack in the ground. Back at the residence, Madame Su had been waiting at the door. The moment she saw him, she rushed forward. "General, I heard about what happened in court." She hesitated, her gaze flickering with complexity. Gu Han remained silent, his face grim. Madame Su grasped his sleeve and sighed softly. "General, it's all because of my lowly origins. I couldn't help you like Miss Jiang could, with her family background. Her father." Gu Han's brow furrowed deeply. Madame Su continued, "Truthfully, I've always said you shouldn't have treated Miss Jiang that way back then. After all, she was the daughter of the Prime Minister's household. But you wouldn't listen, insisting on rushing to save me on our wedding day. I told you then it wasn't necessary. But you insisted. Now look." Her words trailed off as she suddenly covered her mouth, tears falling in a steady stream. "They say women are harbingers of disaster. But I see myself as the general's undoing. If not for me, how could the general have offended the Jiang family? General, I followed you, sacrificing my virtue. Now look at you, no rank, no salary. How am I supposed to live? Had I known this would happen, I should have." Gu Han's temples throbbed violently. Her words sliced through his heart like blunt knives. Each sentence reminded him he was the one who had erred. He was the one who had betrayed Jiang Ning. He was the one who had sacrificed everything for this woman before him. "Enough!" He violently shook off her hand, his voice nearly a growl. Madame Su stumbled back in fright, still sniffling. "Go back first." His voice was icy, he didn't want to hear another word from her. "But General, someone must make decisions for the household. What about the servants?" "I said, go back." Gu Han cut her off sharply, his eyes blazing with unprecedented fury. Madame Su froze, never having seen him like this before. She opened her mouth to speak, but seeing his bloodshot eyes, she finally dared not utter another word. Gu Han listened to her fading sobs, feeling only irritation and turmoil. He strode straight to the study and slammed the door shut. Late at night, Gu Han sat alone in the study, a jar of strong liquor before him. By the faint candlelight, he sorted through the items on his desk. Suddenly, an exquisitely crafted sachet slipped out from between the pages of a scroll. A faint, sweet fragrance wafted out, a scent he knew well. Gu Han froze. This was hand-sewn by Jiang Ning herself, filled with fragrances she had carefully blended. Before their wedding, she had blushed as she handed him the sachets. "General, this is my token of love for you." Her eyes had brimmed with shy affection then. He, however, had been distracted. casually tucking it into a book. Now, looking at it again, he saw the fine, even stitches and the exquisite pattern. Every stitch, every thread, was imbued with her heart and soul. Gu-han trembled as he picked up the sachet, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. "Ah, Ning," he murmured, tears blurring his vision. "I destroyed your love with my own hands. But I know you still love me. Don't you?" Clutching the pouch, the alcohol surged through him, leaving only one thought in his mind. He must find Jiang Ning. He must apologize to her in person and beg her to return. Without her, he was nothing. Only now did he see it all so clearly. Late into the night, he staggered out the manor gates. A few loyal old servants remained within the estate. Seeing his state, they hurried forward. "Master, where are you going?" "To find Aining." Gu-han's drunken eyes were hazy. "She must be suffering terribly lately. I must go comfort her." The old servant looked troubled. "But master, in your current state, get out of my way." Gu-han shoved the old servant aside and staggered toward the street. The alcohol temporarily numbed all shame, leaving only Jiang Ning's image in his mind. He'd heard she'd returned to her family home, so he headed in the direction of the Jiang residence. Yet as he walked, he found himself inexplicably drawn to the foot of the imperial city walls. The Jiang family. An Ning should be at the Jiang residence. But why did I end up here? He shook his head, the alcohol clouding his thoughts. Suddenly, he recalled a rumor he'd heard days ago. Someone claimed to have seen Jiang Ning in the palace. At the time, he dismissed it as drunken rambling, but now he felt, perhaps it was true? Yes. She must be inside. The emperor must have detained her. Something must have happened to the Jiang family, forcing her into the palace. The more Gu-han thought about it, the more convinced he became, the alcohol only amplifying his delusions. "Aining, I'm here to save you." He scanned his surroundings and, seizing a moment during the guard change, actually managed to sneak over the palace walls. The palace was heavily guarded, but Gu-han was, after all, a former general, familiar with the palace layout. Relying on his fading memories, he stumbled and dodged patrols, making his way toward the inner palace. Inside Fengming Palace, I was preparing for bed when sudden commotion reached my ears. Chun Tao rushed in, panic-stricken. "Miss, it's terrible. It's Gu-han. He's breached the palace." My grip on the jade comb tightened instantly, a cold glint flashing in my eyes. "Where is he?" "Right outside the hall. Still shouting, demanding to take you back." I gave a cold laugh and smoothed my robes. "Since he's here, let him in." "Miss?" Chun Tao was puzzled. "Don't worry," I said calmly. "This will be his last time seeing me." Moments later, Gu-han stumbled into the chamber. The moment he saw me, he froze completely. "An Ning, it really is you." I sat quietly, observing the disheveled man before me. The once mighty general now resembled a stray dog. "Gu-han, you have the audacity to trespass into the inner palace." Staggering closer, Gu-han's eyes burned with urgency. "Aining, why are you here? Has the emperor detained you? Come with me. I'll get you out of the palace." His naive notion made me laugh. "Get me out of the palace?" "Yes." Gu-han nodded fervently. "I know something must have happened to the Jiang family, forcing you into the palace. Though I'm no longer a general, I still have some savings. We can flee far away." "Aining, I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong." He knelt down, clutching my sleeve desperately. "I shouldn't have abandoned you on our wedding day. I shouldn't have neglected you for Sue's wife. From now on, you're the only one I want. I don't want Su Nyang anymore. See? I've kept the sachets you made for me all this time. He tremblingly pulled the sachets from his chest. You put so much effort into making them for me, how could I ever throw them away? This proves you still care for me, right? Come home with me. Home? I chuckled softly. Young Master Gu, have you drunk yourself into a stupor? When did I become your wife? Gu Han froze, sobering up considerably. Ning, how can you say that? We exchanged vows. Vows? I cut him off coldly. That day, didn't you abandon me to save your beloved? The one in the palanquin was a scarecrow. Have you forgotten? These words struck him like a thunderclap, turning Gu Han's face deathly pale. Ah Ning, I know I was wrong. He knelt down. I truly know I was wrong. Without you, I am nothing. Please, come back to me. I don't want Sue's wife anymore. I only want you. I looked down at him, my eyes devoid of warmth. Too bad. I don't want you anymore. These words struck him like a bolt from the blue. Gu Han froze, utterly dumbfounded. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He shook his head frantically. You said you risked the entire Jiang family to claim we had a betrothal, just to avoid being taken into the palace. How could you? How could you have? Who said I avoided it? My words struck him like lightning. Ning. You. What are you saying? Just then, steady footsteps echoed outside the hall. I shall see for myself. A commanding voice boomed. Who dares trespass into the inner palace? Coveting this emperor's woman? The emperor, clad in his imperial yellow dragon robe, strode in with deliberate steps. His eyes held a chilling intent to kill, each step heavy and deliberate. In that moment, Gu Han understood completely. He stared at me in utter disbelief. Then at the emperor, his entire being plunging into an icy abyss. Your Majesty. She is my woman. The emperor walked to my side, wrapping his arms around me. Several days ago, I took her as my consort. In a few more days, the ceremony to crown her imperial consort will be held. Gu Han, you have the audacity to covet my woman. Those words pierced Gu Han's heart like a sharp blade. He collapsed to the ground, his face frozen in disbelief. Impossible. This can't be. Ning, tell me this isn't true. In the emperor's embrace, I stared at him coldly. Why wouldn't it be true? You abandoned me on our wedding day, so I never married you. I was never your wife, so I was free to marry anyone. And I chose the one truly worthy of me. As for the sachets in your hands, I paused. Those were made for the one I truly loved. Alas, that person was never you. Gu Han was struck as if by lightning, the sachets slipping from his grasp to the floor. Only then did he realize it had all been his own delusion. Gu Han stared at us, his entire body trembling. No. Ning, I was wrong. I truly was wrong. Please give me one more chance. I swear. I will treat you well. Enough. The emperor's sharp command cut him off. Gu Han, I spare your life for your past service to the court, but you shall be demoted to commoner status. Yet you show no remorse, daring to trespass into the inner palace, shouting loudly, coveting this emperor's woman. This crime deserves death. Guards, drag him away. Administer 80 strokes of the cane, then exile him to the frontier, never to return to the capital. Guards rushed in, hoisting the limp Gu Han. Your Majesty, spare my life. Spare me. Ning, say something. Save me. Gu Han screamed with heart-wrenching anguish, grasping at his last straw. But I didn't even glance at him, nestling instead in the emperor's embrace. Take him away, the emperor said coldly. Ning, I shouldn't have abandoned you. I was wrong. I shouldn't have neglected you for Lady Sue. I was blind. Please, for the sake of our past affection, save me this once. Just this once. His cries grew fainter and fainter, eventually fading into the night. Silence returned to the hall. The Emperor looked down at me, his eyes filled with tenderness. Did he frighten you? I shook my head. No. I just feel. It's finally over. Yes. It's over. He gently kissed my forehead. From now on, no one will ever disturb us again. 3 days later, the palace was adorned with festive lights and decorations. Today was the grand ceremony for my investiture as imperial consort. Within foaming palace maids bustled about, dressing and adorning me. Your Highness, does this headpiece suit you? The chief eunuch asked ingratiatingly, his eyes brimming with reverence. I nodded, studying my reflection in the bronze mirror. The emerald green headpiece was inlaid with countless pearls and jade, while the gold thread-embroidered robes were extravagant beyond measure. Your Highness, His Majesty has arrived, Chun Tao announced from outside the door. I rose to greet him, but the Emperor waved his hand. Today is your day of great joy. No need for formalities. He walked to my side and personally adjusted the jewels on my crown. Nervous? I shook my head. With your Majesty here, I have no fear. A flicker of tenderness passed through his eyes. After today, you shall be my imperial consort. Within the entire harem, save for the Empress, your rank shall be the highest. And furthermore, he paused. I have issued an edict to confer upon your father the title of Grand Tutor of the Secretariat. My heart jolted. This position held greater authority than even the left chancellor. Your Majesty, you deserve it. He interrupted. The Jiang family's merits, I remember them all. The investiture ceremony took place in the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Civil and military officials gathered in full force, creating a truly magnificent spectacle. By the mandate of heaven, the Emperor decrees. The eunuch proclaimed the edict in a loud voice. Lady Jiang, poised and dignified, gentle and virtuous, renowned for her moral conduct and noble character, she is hereby specially conferred the title of imperial consort, ranking first among the 4 consorts, to serve as the motherly model for the realm. So decreed. The Emperor personally placed the golden insignia of imperial consort upon my head, his eyes brimming with deep affection. Imperial consort Jiang, I have awaited this day for so long. The officials roared long live the Emperor, as ceremonial music resounded. Yet my gaze remained fixed only on the man before me, my heart finding unparalleled peace. This time, I have finally chosen the right person. The end.